Political Café, and I'm your host, Tariro, Gurure. And in today's episode, we're having a different perspective in how youth in art can politically participate 2023 and beyond. As we go into elections and electoral mode, there has been so much social consciousness among artists in and around Zimbabwe. But today we have a different artist. He uses words to communicate. He uses words to advocate. His name is Sondlane Dube, but most probably you know him as Sox the Poet. Welcome, Sox.
Thank you so much, Tari. I am glad to be here.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know there's something coming up in the next few weeks, and I'm really excited on your behalf. But for you to be here, it's an actual pleasure to have you, so that we talk about this conversation that is very close to your heart and young people's hearts. My question to you, Sondlane, would be, what does art do in terms of consciousness amongst young people?
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to come and speak about this. I think firstly what we need to understand is artists, they have a very critical role in terms of shaping the political discourse and the social and economic living of our nation. Mm-hmm. So art is a way that is used to sort of like share information firstly. That's the main role of it. Then later on, it can also help to re-engage in terms of political and in elections, re-engagement when it comes to electoral participation. Art creates and it shares stories from the grassroots as well, to share and help in terms of policy formulation, because when you're creating policy, there needs to be an understanding of what is happening on the ground. So art is the bridge, art is the central bridge that brings all these things together, the technical side of politics and the social side. Art is in the middle of it all. It creates a ground whereby people can come together, where politics can be made understandable, where politics can be devolved to young people, where it can be devolved even to different demographics within the social and political setup. So art is the glue that really makes politics make sense.
Mm-hmm. Art is the glue that makes politics to make sense. You are a poet yourself.
Yes.
But who is actively participating in political or rather electoral processes? And you have observed elections before. As an artist, do you see other artists actively participating in political spaces?
Okay, so I think I'll answer this question in a different way. Mm-hmm. In the sense of right now globally, when you talk about participation, there is a decrease in terms of political participation globally, especially when it comes to young people. Mm-hmm. Now, artists now in the Zimbabwean context is now even way more worse, because we've got a very youthful demography population, whereby young people they supersede, or they rather the number of young people in Zimbabwe is higher than that of any other demography, right? So artists, ideally, they need to have a role to participate, but they are afraid. Why they are afraid is because of systematical and structural factors that are there that people have always been talking about. They fear politics. They feel like politics is a way of trying to end your life fast. There is political persecution. There is a lot of media that talks about so many things that increase fear in young people. So artists are afraid. They do not understand their role fully when it comes to politics. They would rather entertain for the sake of entertaining than for the sake of building a nation, than for the sake of saying, because when you participate and when you share positive information on politics, you are doing a patriotic role. But they are afraid of what patriotism looks like. They are afraid of taking a role actively in politics. And there is very few youths who can actively and who can proactively come to the forefront and say, I have participated in politics. How I've participated, have been sharing information, I've mobilized people to go and register to vote, or I have even at least gotten my family to go and participate in political process. There are very few of them. Why? Because they are afraid.
They are afraid for the little that they're getting, that it can be eventually cancelled.
Yes, plus the fear of it also is as a result of misinformation. There is very little information, because there are systems that can benefit from misinformation, systems that benefit from saying, instead of people having the full information on why they should participate, let's have them benefit from the fear that they have, so that if they do not participate fully, then we know that in a way there is an advantage that we can take from that. So people are afraid to participate politically because they view politics from a lens of saying there is violence, politics is a dirty game, which is one of those statements that is usually shared by people who know nothing about politics, who do not understand the bread and butter politics, to say that 2 cents that you're complaining about is political, the 2 cents or the transport that you're complaining about is political. Literally everything and everywhere where you exist and coexist is political. So not participating is participating, but from a point of ignorance. So people are afraid because they are ignorant. That's
People are afraid to participate because they're ignorant. You spoke of an issue that there is global less participation apathy, yes. And equally in Zimbabwe, there is worse apathy now, where you can't convince I2K Katesubuti go and register to vote. They will ask you questions like why, and omunye I2K lazalati amina sistari. I've been born in a country or in endaweni engingakwaziyo ukuthi into enhle kuyini. So ngipha into eyi-1 yoku engandintsha ingqondo zami, and I was stuck as a person who loves participating. I was stuck to convince them but uyakwazi ukuthi you can still register to vote. Sometimes things change. God has the fate. Sometimes you need to use religion. You need to use tools are different. But in your case, you can use art.
Yes.
And how is your writing process in saying, I want to do a register to vote campaign, or I want to do a social justice poem? How is your writing process? And ungayibhalela i-2K yini lizwisise lisukumele register to vote?
Definitely, without doubt. So my process is like this. I'm a person who likes to research, especially when it comes to issues that have to do with politics, because it's a very fragile and sensitive point or topic. Talking about politics is very sensitive, especially in the context we exist in. Right now we're going to the elections period, right? Everything that you write needs to be backed by statistics, by research, by things that actually show that at least you know what you're talking about. So I research a lot. After the research that I do it from a point of reading books and also talking and conversing with people, because like I said, art is the bridge between technical side of politics and the practical side of it. To say, when after researching, how do people perceive the things that I've researched? So talking is also part of the research. Then afterwards, then you also understand that people right now, they are more visual people. What also they enjoy is they like the rhyme sequence. They like to hear you speaking certain kind of words and how you lay down the things that you lay them, like how you lay them down, right? They enjoy that. So you also need to make it engaging and more fun to listen to. So the writing process encompasses all those things. Then at the end of the day, the delivery now, when you're delivering certain things, with words, how you say words, it has got an impact, a different impact. Usually, maybe I can give you an example of saying I love you. Saying I love you with a straight face is nothing, right? But saying I love you with sincerity written in your face means everything, right? So even with words, even with poetry, I do the same thing. I need to know how to say certain words in a particular way, because you understand that being an orator or an art that is based off an oratory gift, right? You need to understand human emotions. You need to know how to influence emotions. You need to know the perceptions that come after you say what you say. You need also to know what are some of the repercussions of saying what you say in a certain type of way, how it will be perceived, because we're in a very political correct world whereby certain things, if you say them in a funny way, you will end up apologizing for everything and anything. So my process encompasses and puts all these things into cognizance. Then the most interesting part now is trying to then engage with the crowd, because after everything that you have said, you need to engage to make the balance and draw the line between politics and art. And now, after doing all that, you then understand that we have a generation that is, like let's say, that feels like they have never experienced what a politically stable system or environment looks like. So you now need to paint that system in pictures and in words, right? Make them see word for word that this is the ideal and this is where we are and how do we get to where we want to get. So when you do all that and you make it a process, it makes it easy to then engage and say, no, at least out of all these 10,000 people that I've presented to, 100 have managed to go and register to vote, because that's how you then measure the impact of it at the end of the day.
And you spoke of numbers. And politics is a numbers game. Yes, it's a game of numbers. and without the numbers, we might face the danger of not participating fully. We are in a process of delimitation,
Yes.
and you know how delimitation can affect us on this side of region, Ngapha Bulawayo and maybe Matebelele and places. As an artist, how can you package indaba ye delimitation? Ngoba people don't understand ukuthi kuyini delimitation. As much as there were bleeds and as much as there were campaigns and izinto ezinjengazo lezo, you might just want to randomly do a research, and do a research. Do you know what delimitation is? Very as an artist or as artist, how can you package the delimitation processes or even the electoral processes? People don't understand that this is a process, pre, during and post. Umuntu cabanga ngavuke siyavota sokuphelile akalaleli lama results akalaleli lokuthi engabuza bani to account for anything that happens in our society.
Okay, so I feel like the problem that we have is we've got so many academics, right? And I feel like they are the problem in the sense of they always want to present all those topics from an intellectual point of view. But when you look at statistics, you realize that intellectuals are less than the non-intellectuals, right? Academics are less. So when you speak and say delimitation, you are speaking to a target group or an audience that understands what delimitation is. So art then comes then to say, let's dumb down the conversation. I like to use the word dumb down the conversation because there are a lot of people on the ground who do not understand what delimitation is and need it explained. So when we talk about how it draws boundaries, people also do not understand why drawing boundaries makes sense. So it's now a case of contextualizing each to things that really matter to them. Like I said, bread and butter politics, to say when everything has been delimited, it means that the amount of resources that you're going to get at the end of the day as a constituency will be this much. So that means chances are you might not be able to get the kind of education that you need. The kind of like food price and everything might also be affected. Fuel gets affected. You might find that in terms of the development, the roads that you use, there could be more accident because you won't have enough funds to rehabilitate the potholes and everything. So delimitation needs to be explained as a process. The same goes to elections. It needs to be made to be something that you can relate to. When we say why you should go and register to vote, don't go and say register to vote because it's your national responsibility. Who cares about responsibility? Go and say go and register to vote, right? Why? Break down what national responsibility means. It means that the education that you so much value, if you do not register to vote and you vote maybe for a person or people who do not align with the policies and your aspirations, it means you won't get what you need. People are selfish by nature, so speak to their selfish needs. Say you want to be able to lobola someday, right? If you don't vote the right way, you might not get to lobola because you always be doing like hand to mouth, trying to find money. That's an economic perspective. You will always believe in renting a house, you might not be able to afford property and everything. So when you break down the conversation to a dumb enough scale whereby anyone and everyone, if you are able to make a primary school student understand, then you are the smartest man on earth. But if you are there to speak to all these research academics and say, yeah, those are the big words, the jargon and everything, you are still just regurgitating what you read. It doesn't make you any smarter. So this conversation needs to be strategic. It needs people to be able to break it down, refine it in an artistic and very interesting manner. Because at the end of the day, you are like fishermen, right? You need to throw in the hook and get something. So if you keep on throwing the hook, whether the hook has got the biggest worm, but if no one catches the worm, you are still the dumbest fisherman ever.
Wow, you're still the dumbest fisherman as ever. I want to understand that now we have so much diverse group of artists, even artists that with disabilities, and I know that there are arts associations, there are groups, and there are individuals that don't want to be associated into those associations. But I want to understand, as a poet yourself, have you ever packaged some of your works in a way that I, as a person with a disability, ngingakhona ukuthi ngikulalele ngikuzwe njalo ngithathe that step of willing for participation?
Okay, so the conversation, I think this is really an interesting conversation, especially when you talk about disability rights, right? But the understanding that I got as an artist is there are a lot of disabilities and you cannot speak to all of them, right? But then now I'm in the process of saying that even people who are not able to do, who have got impairments in terms of listening, right? I am able to at least create something that is visual. You see, because when it comes to art, it needs to be able to speak to the what? To the heart. People need to understand and perceive the message that you're saying. So making it visual is one way. Transcribing the words and writing them down as subtitles, that's another way as well. Making sure that you also have material, the visual content that you're making, make sure that it's not too photosensitive, because you also have got people with epilepsy who can be triggered by the things that you produce. So these are the things that I try to consider whenever, but here and there we also fail because of what? Financial resources. When it comes, especially when it comes to presenting, and also another thing that I do is political correctness, the languaging. I feel like the languaging matters more than anything else, right? But when you say things, the way that I'm speaking to you is a way that I know that you understand what I'm saying. I know that every word that I say, you are going to take it and you're probably going to take it to heart. So I need to be careful in terms of saying what I say. So packaging information, because we are also sharing information, needs one to be conscious of the dynamics that are there, especially in the disability world, and understand how to speak to different people with different abilities, speak to different people, and choose your audience as well at the end of the day. Because I feel like my poetry has got limitations as well. It cannot speak to anyone and everyone, but to whoever it speaks to, it needs to be packaged in a way that they can understand.
It needs to be packaged in a way that everyone understands. And you keep on speaking and raising issues of visual. You keep on speaking of issues raising to how someone can see, how lights and all that. And I understand you have ventured into filmmaking.
Yes.
So this is something that you've learned.
This is something that is new that I'm learning.
Oh, this is interesting. You actually picked up the importance of visual, the importance of subtitles, the importance of that makes everyone comfortable in consuming your work. In the film journey that you are with, this is also art. I want to understand ukuthi ungayifaka njani indaba ye participation for artists to participate. This is you not just speaking to random people, layman people, but your fellow artists that are beautiful, that have beautiful art, that speak amazing things, but are not participating in those and the politics. And not city politics, I say to Guti, say Hamba, the Chavan, City Guti, are they even registered to vote?
Yes, yes. So I think, especially in the art industry, there is a saying that says, not in the art industry, there's a general saying that says there's nothing new under the sun, right? So that saying on its body, from my understanding, is to say, I need to be able to create something that speaks to the politics so that someone else can come and emulate and develop from there. So I think the first line of engaging other artists and encouraging them to participate is creating something that is beautiful enough to inspire them to want to create the same but better, firstly. Then secondly, you also have things that have to do with actually sharing information. We meet in different spaces, we talk and we converse. So when you do so, there is no harm, there is no rule against saying, comrades, you need to make sure that you speak to politics, because it governs your everyday living. The air that you breathe is political. So having a statement like that, even within a song, in a poetry piece, already on its own, it sparks conversation, because art also sparks conversation, right? So when it comes to participation as well, it's also having a baseline understanding of how different people participate, from where they come from as artists, why they chose not to participate. That's something that needs to be shared as a way of storytelling within your art. So there are many forms that artists can be made to speak to participation, but they need firstly to relate, to understand. If I'm saying I'm not participation, find out why. Get them to say why they are not participating, because already that information feeds also into the database of why people do not participate, which also qualifies as what is information on participation. So in this case, it's also now shifting perspectives, having people understand that whatever you say and whatever you do not say also has a bearing on who you are, where you're going political. So at the end of the day, you cannot really shy away or run away from politics. It will always catch up with you.
Interesting. You can't run away and from politics. So what I'm gathering from you is everything is political.
Everything is
When
political.
everything is governed by policies.
This mic is political.
This mic is political. Economics and all that. Everything is political. So I need to understand that as an observer, you've observed elections, and I want to assume that these were by-elections that you observe, and
yes.
I'm hoping that also in 2023 you'll be part of the observers. How has been the youth participation in terms of being observers, in terms of being election agents, in terms of being election strategists, and also just coming to vote, to register to vote?
I think there is a set reality that is evident in terms of youth participation. Young people who participate in those spaces are very few. They are recycled in different spaces. If I participate today as an observer, I'll participate tomorrow as an observer, right? And there is a danger of creating silos of saying, we are now the people who participate, and the percentage of which you'll find that it doesn't even go beyond 5% in all the spaces that you mentioned. But now when it comes to the actual young people who are affected, the virgin voters that have just come through and the virgin voters who do not want to be within the database, those are the people that are important, and they do not participate, most of them. Some of them, they completely do not want to participate, and there is the danger of people assuming that everyone who doesn't want to participate, right, it's because of ignorance. There are people with information who just choose not to participate as well. So in order for us to then increase that number, we need to be able to strategically speak to them as well. Try to convince, like to really convince a person to come and participate, because at the end of the day, you are trying to make someone see something that they do not see. When it comes to even election observers, we've had civic society members playing an active role to try and increase the participation of young people. But like I said, at the end of the day, they've also created silos within their their spaces to say, Tariro is going to do this, so and so is going to do this, so and so is going to do this. But the new people who are able to also push the agenda further, because you already have your audience and your audience already knows what you're doing. So you need a new face to then bring a new audience, and the more we have new faces, the greater the reach. But when it comes to participation, I feel like we still have a very long way to go, especially as young people, and even the elderly, and because youths, we now have categories of youth. We've got the 90s, we've got the 2Ks, and within the 2Ks, we've got the earlier 2Ks now are turning 18, right? All these categories, they do not participate. You find a lot of people in the 90s participating because they have witnessed different growths in terms of politics. They have witnessed different eras of politics. They also have witnessed where politics works. You see. So they feel like they are more responsible and can speak to politics, whereas they are neglecting people who are affected the most at the end of the day.
Yeah, you spoke of Uguti, we have the recycler, the same people that are observing, the same people that are the same people. You see, these new faces that are willing to be part of this movement, that are willing to be part of just social justice in G. How can we recruit? Can art play a pivotal role to say, Buyani bagithi sibele call lapha watching ngama-words amnandi, serenade them to say we want to see new we want to see new faces in as observers in 2023. We want to also see new faces as politicians in council, in parliament. How can you do that? And also just tell me that because we're closing the show, so just make sure that you package that amazingly.
Okay. I almost said it's fashion. That's something that has never happened. But so when it comes to art is beautiful in the sense that you can have literally any conversation in art, right? In art, people, they get to, I like to use the word relate, because I feel like all this, politics needs to be personal. It needs to be a conviction that you as a person have on your own without being driven, without being convinced to what. So art then creates that conversation. It creates and it approaches politics from an emotive point of view, but it also adds logic onto it, right? So when we use art now, we are able to tap into new realities, new audiences, because you are speaking to their realities. You are making it creative. You are making it seem as if it's the dopest thing to do in order to participate. You are not like burdening them with a lot of presentations, with a lot of statistics that they thought they would have escaped after finishing high school, but you're now making it into a song, into a poetry piece. So that's how you can get new audiences. People do not like, the culture of reading is slowly eroding, if you really realize, right?
Okay.
Now people are visual more than ever. People, they want to see, they want to listen, they want to relate, they want something that at least pleases their soul. So when we make politics like that, when we make politics pleasing, it makes it easy to get new audiences at the end of the day, because we need people to be able, we need generations to sort of like a regeneration of ideas. New people coming in the play, new people coming with new ideas and understanding, like contexts are now different. The way we participated back in the day and the way we participate now is different. So it's not always everyone who is going to walk to the polling station and vote. So we need also to incorporate things like digital literacy to say, as a nation, let's be relevant in the digital era as well. It makes it easy to tap to the new watching audiences, because young people right now, they are more digital than anyone else. They can stay at home, but they can still work and get paid on TikTok. But the elderly, they've always wanted office to be there. So we need a balance. We need to understand how to strike the balance. Art starts the conversations, and it makes the conversations a little bit sustainable.
Art starts conversations and it makes conversations a little bit sustainable. So I am glad that you have been part of us today, and for people that are into art, that or also that follow art, they need to understand that you can actually relate to any artist in their form of activism or awareness. And that was it for today from the 263 Political Café. And please do follow us for more of our episodes on our social medias. Thank you so much, Sonjani, for joining us today.
Thank you for
Bye, guys. Thank you.